This is one of those machines that's kind of a grail machine. I put out feelers for it and never thought I'd encounter one, but here we are with one in my possession, and sadly I wish I had a better example of one, but this will have to do. This is a Dell XPS 730, and there were quite a few of these machines, at least in this weird kind of slanted form factor. This one seems to be one of the easier ones because some of them have liquid cooling systems that you have to work around. Some of them are BTX, so you have to worry about, having a BTX motherboard. You really can't swap in a different motherboard. But this one is pretty much by the books ATX. This uses a NVIDIA N4 790i motherboard, and there's only really one motherboard with that chipset that I can see, at least on the retro web. And this board is just a rebranded version of that, but with the Dell BIOS to look for the Dell proprietary additions onto this system, because as we'll get into it and look, there's some proprietary stuff in here that I think can be moved over to another system, but I've not looked too far into that to really tell you if that's the case or not. So let's just start right off the hop by opening the case with this big old beefy latch back here. And it just pulls forward and off the machine. This feels very much like Dell trying to make their own G5, and kind of a pun in there because they do have a laptop called the G5. But what I'm talking about is the PowerMac G5, because while it isn't toolless, behind these two panels here are the fans, and you can pull those out, again, with a screwdriver, but it feels very reminiscent of the PowerMac G5 design, or at least inspired by it. We have drive cages up here, and you can just pull these out by the rails. Those thankfully are toolless. The front panel is kind of toolless. If you slide down that latch over there, you can get the front faceplate off, and with it the drives as well. So for the specs on this machine, like I said before, this is running an NVIDIA 790i motherboard, which again was rebranded. NVIDIA did not make the motherboard, it's just using their in-force chipset. I believe EVGA may have made the motherboard. I will add a little bit here once I get back to a computer and can tell you, but I do know this motherboard was sold under several different vendors, and so it's really just a by the books ATX board, again with a Dell BIOS program to look for the master control unit, I believe it's called, which is another little sub board kind of under these fans here that provides the front panel controls, provides fan controls, and provides the addressable LEDs on the front, because yes, this has RGB LEDs on the front and they are addressable through software. I have not yet played with that. I need to look into that some more, but we'll get to that when we get to that. The CPU, which is behind this big old baffle here, is a Core 2 Quad Q9550, which is a nice step up over my Q6700 that was in my previous Overkill Windows XP machine, which is kind of staring at me from the shelf at the moment. We've got 4 gigs of RAM, which I don't really need much more for what this system is running, which is XP, Vista, and maybe a little bit of 7. We'll see where we go with that. The cards are very simple. We have a Creative Labs X5 PCIe SB0880. Up from that, we've got the Quadro K4000, which was previously in my Overkill XP build, because despite it being a 2014 era card, it still has Windows XP drivers. And yeah, it might be a Quadro, and Quadros aren't known for gaming, but it's so powerful, it doesn't even matter. So it's an awesome card that sips power, which is perfect for my uses here because this system is packing in the power department. So if I could save a little bit here and there, I'm going to take that trade. But yeah, there's no more cards in here, but we do have PCI just in case I do want to throw something in here for fun. But as of right now, I haven't needed to. Past the drive rails, we got the power supply, which is a just giant power supply. And that's because that is a 1 kilowatt power supply. Only the second one I actually have in my possession, because I do have over here a Corsair RM1000. And that was the power supply I actually tested the board with, because I did have to recap this board, at least partially, because the Sanyo capacitors on it had gone bad. Thankfully, it's another one of those cases where only a certain brand of capacitors had gone bad, and they were all the same value, so getting a replacement set was pretty cheap, thankfully, and it didn't break the bank. So, was able to get this system up and running for fairly cheap, and so I've probably already spoiled the rest of the video here. This system does run. Let's turn it around, and I'm sure my back is not going to like me for this. So here's the back side, and as you can see, it is an ATX board just flipped upside down, and thankfully with an IO shield that pops out. So if, God forbid, the motherboard in here was beyond saving, you could just pop in any ATX motherboard and it should do fine. I'm not sure if Dell's master control unit in here, I don't know if it'll jive with just any motherboard. I would hope that it does once you install the drivers for it. But yeah, you can pretty much otherwise put any motherboard in here that you want and it'll just work. What is a neat little feature though is there is actually another kind of controller here for the CPU fan sitting on the other side of this grate here, and it has some LEDs that shine through here and provide lighting to the ports, which is quite awesome. I'm not sure if Dell was the first to do this, but hey, really neat. I like it. So here we have the front panel, and this whole part comes off. There's actually supposed to be a little door right here that says XPS on it, and I would like to 3D print another one, but there's no file out there to do so, and I'd love to try and model one, but I don't have the original. So if anybody has the door for one of these and would like to take some measurements and such, that would be awesome. Please do get in contact with me because I'd love to reproduce it so this isn't just kind of out here open. But we do have one optical drive, as you probably could see from the inside, and I've actually replaced the optical drive because what came in here was a Blu-ray rewritable drive, and my main PC doesn't even have a Blu-ray drive, so I said, you know what, I'm going to take that from my main PC and just throw a bog standard DVD rewritable drive in here, and that's what's in here currently. It's on the bottom because the SATA cable for the front panel drives is quite short, so I had to put it down here so it could reach the quick swap bay that I have here for SSDs. And I have this here, even though I could just, you know, drop the side panel. This way I can switch OSs without having to take the machine apart and swap the drives that way. Here we have a floppy drive because, as UXW Bill kind of alludes to, in a way, if a floppy header is provided, we are contractually obligated to make use of it, and sure enough, there is in fact a floppy drive header on this motherboard. The white floppy drive I had kind of stood out against the black here, so I tried to paint it blue, and I kind of got there, but unfortunately, I lost the spring for the floppy drive door, so it's in there, but it's just kind of stuck. So now, if I try to eject the disk, it'll just spit it out at me and it'll go flying. So I have to be very careful, and that's kind of another reason why I wish I had this door here, because now there's nothing preventing dust from getting into the floppy drive. But floppy drives are still kind of a dime a dozen, so maybe I can find one to put in here that's more color matched. Then we have our front panel, which is very appropriate for the time because we've got FireWire, awesome, audio in and audio out, which is hooked up to the Sound Blaster because it does have a header on the card, and 2 USB ports. We also have an activity light right about here for the hard drive. And yeah, that's really it for the front panel, short of the requisite case badges with a Core 2 quad inside and Windows Vista. Because yes, this machine came with Windows Vista, and I'm kind of glad it did, because most machines that came with Windows Vista can also run XP perfectly fine, because a lot of OEMs back then really kind of bowed to the pressure of people not liking Windows Vista and offered you the ability to downgrade to Windows XP if you were so maddened by Vista. Thankfully, the Vista install I had on my old Overkill Windows XP machine just works in here, so I didn't have to reinstall it, but I did have to reinstall XP, which was kind of unfortunate, but what can you do? At least I've gotten fairly good at spinning up XP installs really fast. So yeah, let's get this machine put back together and fired up. Okay, with the lights down, we can have some fun to see this thing light up. So here we go. It is very lit up and starting up now. Good old floppy seek. Probably going to be angry because the CMOS battery is dead and I had it unplugged, but no, it's just going to boot. Nice. So as I alluded to earlier, we do have Windows XP installed, and because we're on an SSD, it's going to be lightning fast, just like that. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to get you guys more trained on the screen. Also turned on one of the lights so I can actually see what I'm doing over here, but we've got the good old Model M plugged in with a completely period incorrect Microsoft ball mouse. So I've only got one game currently installed on here in 3D Mark, so we will run 3D Mark real quick and let it strut its stuff. This mouse feels kind of gritty. I will put a better mouse on this machine once it gets moved back into my room. So I'm just gonna hit the benchmark and we will be back when it's finished, I guess. And there's the final score, 53,000 3D marks. I know I could run 3D Mark 05 or whatever have you, but 01 is kind of benchmarking the types of games I'd really run on this system, if we're honest. So I like to use it over everything else. Plus, this is the baseline I use on my other machines that are running like Windows 98 for good example. So, that all done, let's go ahead and fire up a game. Now, the only game I really have on here is Unreal Tournament 2004, which, I mean, is probably the heaviest game I have in my retro collection. So, let's go ahead and just do it. And you can probably guess that I have everything turned all the way up.
Holy shit.
Alright, so let's give it my usual UT 2004 benchmark, and that is Assault Convoy. Because this map is very heavy. The video card in here, despite it being a Quadro, is 10 years newer than the game it's playing. I would hope this has no issues. We may get a little hitching because I don't have V-Sync on and I really should have it on, but very awesome. But I mean, did we question this machine ever? There's a reason I call it the Overkill Windows XP machine. So, real quick, let's have a look at the specifications. 3 gigs of RAM because I am running x86 edition Windows XP because the 64-bit edition is a special type of curse that I don't want to put on here. But it's running fairly well. If we go over to hardware, I think I've got most everything installed. Yeah, everything is installed. I have the Enforce controller disabled, at least the secondary one, because it would otherwise just pop up a constant icon that the network is unplugged when I'm never going to use that port. Maybe I can just turn these back on and we should have a network connection. Yeah, we do. And if we go back to general, there's our Core 2 Quad, Q9550, 2.83 gigahertz. Yeah, this thing is a beast, and I'm very glad to have it now because, yeah, I may be a bit beat up, but maybe we can fix that, or maybe, you know, we just let the scars of the machine tell its story. Either way, very happy to have the machine, and hopefully you enjoyed this look at it with me. So till next time, I will see you guys around.